Welcome back to New Emotional Story. She didn't growl, she didn't bark. She just stared at me from the shadows beneath that broken porch on the edge of Fifth and Ellington just outside Houston. Her ribs were showing, her fur was matted and dry, and her eyes didn't ask for help. They asked if I was going to be the next one to hurt her. I crouched down slow and careful. The air smelled like dirt and hot metal. I was there to inspect the property for demolition. Just another abandoned house I wasn't supposed to see anyone. But when I stepped onto that creaky porch, I felt eyes on me, and there she was, German Shepherd young, maybe 2 years old, thin as a shadow. I spoke to her soft. "Hey girl, you okay?" She didn't move, her paws were curled beneath her, like she was guarding something. Then I heard it, a faint whimper, then another, my chest tightened. I backed away, returned to my truck and grabbed the leftover sandwich from lunch, turkey and bread. I knelt again and slid it across the cracked floorboards. She didn't move, but she sniffed the air. Then after a moment she stood. That's when I saw them, three, no. Four tiny German Shepherd puppies hiding in the dark behind her. One was curled in the back, barely moving. One had its head resting on a piece of fabric, something red like a child's sock. The others peeked out, but didn't come close. She didn't eat. She picked up the food and dropped it by her pups. They chewed with tiny jaws like it was their first real meal in days. I felt the heat in my throat. The kind that tells you this isn't just a moment. This is something you can't walk away from. I stayed a few more minutes. No sudden moves, just sitting, watching, letting her see I wasn't a threat before I left. I whispered, "I'll be back tomorrow." I didn't know her name, but something in me already knew I couldn't leave her there. Not her, not them. Not after what I saw in her eyes the next morning. I was there before the sun even touched the roof. I parked across the street and walked slow, carrying a bag of fresh food and a small bottle of water. The neighborhood was silent, just wind and dust, and that porch was still sagging under years of rot. She was there, same spot, still guarding, but something was different. Her ears perked up when she saw me. Not trust, but not fear either. "Morning, Mama," I said softly. I sat on the edge of the porch, careful not to look directly at her pups. I placed the food down in the same spot. She sniffed the air, glanced back at the shadows where her babies hid, then crept forward. She didn't eat. Not yet. She nudged the food gently, then turned back to the porch one by one. The puppies came out, the smallest one. The one with the red sock came last. He dragged it like it was his blanket. The mother finally ate slowly, watching me the whole time. Her eyes were tired but not broken. I noticed the smallest pup's back leg trembled when he tried to stand. He fell twice before curling up again. My heart sank. He needed help. They all did. I opened the bottle of water and poured some into a shallow dish. She didn't stop me. She let the puppies drink. She let me stay an hour past then too. I just sat with them, not saying much. She never barked, never growled, just kept looking at me like she was trying to understand why I came back. I looked around the yard. There were broken bricks, twisted weeds, and an old tire half buried in dirt. Someone had dumped a ripped-up blanket by the fence. This wasn't a place for life. It was where things were forgotten, but somehow this dog had chosen to stay, to protect, to survive. I left a soft towel before I walked away. I didn't look back until I reached the truck she had taken. The towel brought it to her pups and laid down beside them. One paw rested over the smallest one. I knew I couldn't wait much longer. That little pup wouldn't last in the cold. Another night, tomorrow, I had to try something more. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her lying there, bones pressing through her skin, guarding her babies with nothing but will. Especially the little one, the one with the sock. His tiny body barely moved. He didn't cry, didn't whimper, just breathed shallow and slow at sunrise. I packed a box lined with a soft blanket, filled a thermos with warm broth, and grabbed a leash I wasn't sure I'd even get to use. I didn't want to scare her. I didn't want to separate them. But I also knew if I didn't act soon, we might lose him when I arrived. She was waiting this time. She stood when I approached. She didn't run. Her tail was low, but it swayed just once, like a flicker of hope. I placed the box near the porch, put the warm broth close enough for the scent to reach. She stepped forward, sniffed, then turned back. And then something I didn't expect, she picked up the weakest puppy very gently and carried him to the edge. She placed him beside the box and looked up at me. Not like she was asking, like, Marcus striking Maverick, followed by the caretaker's carelessness with the kennel door. More disturbing was the discovery that this wasn't an isolated incident. Reviewing earlier footage revealed Marcus had been rough with several animals over the past month. Tony immediately suspended Marcus pending investigation and called Jenny, despite her being out sick. "We have a situation," he explained, "and I need your expertise with Maverick. He trusts Elena somewhat, but we need to move him from the supply closet." By evening, they had successfully coaxed Maverick into a quiet office converted into temporary housing. Elena had volunteered to stay late, continuing to read aloud, while maintaining a respectful distance as the German Shepherd gradually adjusted to the new space. "What happens now?" Elena asked Jenny, who had arrived despite being unwell. "We document everything," Jenny replied grimly. "And we need to check all the animals Marcus has handled for signs of mistreatment." She hesitated before adding, "But there's something else you should know about Maverick." Jenny pulled up his intake photos on her tablet. "Notice anything?" Elena studied the images, then looked at Maverick across the room. "The markings around his eyes and muzzle are different." Jenny nodded. "Because this isn't Maverick based on these distinctive markings, and a small scar on his right flank. I believe this is actually Duke, a police K9, who went missing during a training exercise 2 months ago." Elena's eyes widened. "A police dog. But why didn't they find him when they scanned for a microchip?" "That's what worries me," Jenny said, lowering her voice. "According to his intake notes, the scanner didn't detect anything. Either his microchip migrated or someone deliberately missed it." Elena finished the implication, hanging heavily between them. Neither woman could have predicted how this discovery would connect to a larger web of corruption that had been festering within the county's animal control system, or how a traumatized German Shepherd would become the key to unraveling it all. Officer Jason Reeves had spent 8 weeks searching for his missing partner. Duke had disappeared during a rural training exercise, vanishing into dense woods without a trace. The official report suggested the German Shepherd had likely been killed by coyotes or had suffered an accident in the rough terrain, but Jason refused to accept this conclusion. "He's too well trained to just wander off," Jason had insisted to his superiors, "and we would have found remains if he'd been attacked." When Jason received Jenny's call, he broke every speed limit driving to the shelter. Surveillance footage showed the moment he entered the office where Duke was being kept. The German Shepherd's reaction was immediate and stunning. Despite his traumatized state, Duke's ears perked forward, his body tensed, and then in a moment that brought tears to those watching, he raced across the room and pressed himself against Jason's legs, whining with recognition. "Where have you been, partner?" Jason whispered, kneeling to embrace his dog. Duke trembled against him, simultaneously displaying joy at the reunion and lingering fear from his recent experiences. The physical examination that followed raised disturbing questions. Duke's microchip had been surgically removed. A small, partially healed incision was discovered. When they shaved the fur from his shoulder, he had lost nearly 15 pounds. And in addition to the new psychological trauma, he showed evidence of having been kept in confined quarters for extended periods. This wasn't a case of a lost dog being picked up by animal control. Jenny explained as they reviewed the findings. Someone took him, deliberately removed his chip, and kept him somewhere before he either escaped or was abandoned near the highway where he was found. The implications were serious enough to warrant opening an official investigation. Duke's status as a police canine meant his theft and mistreatment constituted a federal offense. Within hours, the local police department and the FBI had begun gathering evidence, including the security footage of Marcus striking Duke. When questioned, Marcus claimed no knowledge of Duke's origins beyond finding him as a stray. However, his phone records told a different story, revealing communications with individuals suspected of involvement in dogfighting rings across the state. While Duke showed no evidence of having been forced to fight, investigators theorized he might have been intended for breeding or training other dogs due to his exceptional temperament and abilities. Throughout the initial investigation, Elena remained. Dear friend, for next part of this story, please stay with us and do subscribe our channel. We never see things like this. But I wasn't surprised because I'd seen her under that porch. I'd seen what she was willing to endure. And now for the first time, she wasn't doing it alone. I started coming every day, didn't even think about it. I'd finish work, grab a bag of food or some old towels from home, and head straight to the shelter. They started calling her Mara. I don't know who picked the name, but it fit her strong quiet like the storm she'd walked through, and survived. The pups were starting to move more. Explore their space, the smallest one. The one with the red sock was still fragile, but he could stand now, walk a few steps before toppling over, and every time he fell, Mara was there nudging him back up with that same calm patience that kept them all alive one evening. I brought a new toy, a little stuffed fox, the moment I set it down. The biggest puppy grabbed it and ran into a corner tail wagging like crazy. The others followed, tumbling over each other, learning how to play. It was the first time I heard sound, little growls. Tiny yips, and Mara. She watched from her spot, head resting on her paws. Eyes half closed. Safe, finally safe. I sat next to the kennel and just watched one of the shelter staff. A woman named Renee sat beside me. She said quietly, "They're healing faster because of you." But I didn't feel like a hero. I hadn't done anything special. I just showed up. That's it. I showed up when no one else did. Renee looked at me for a moment, then said, "Most people see strays and think someone else will help, but someone else never came." That stuck with me. Mar had waited not for food, not even for shelter. She waited for someone who wouldn't run away when things got hard, someone who wouldn't just drop off a bag of kibble and disappear. And I realized I didn't just rescue them. I was becoming part of their story, and maybe, just maybe, they were becoming part of mine. The day the adoption forms landed on the front counter, I froze. Renee handed them to me with a smile, but her eyes were searching. "You've been coming here every day," she said gently. "I figured maybe you'd want to make it official." I stared at the papers, Mara's name, 4 tiny boxes underneath for the pups. It felt too big, too sudden. I wasn't planning this. I didn't even know if I was ready. But when I turned around, they were all there, lined up at the edge of their kennel, like they already knew, like they were waiting for my answer. Mara stood last calm, still, but her eyes, they were softer now, like she had hope in them. Real hope. I didn't sign that day. I just sat with them, like always, brought them fresh blankets and fed them by hand. The smallest one, I'd started calling him Scout. He still slept curled up with that red sock. It was filthy now, but I couldn't throw it away. It was his comfort, his anchor over the next few days. People came and went. One family asked about the pups. Another couple pointed at Mara through the glass. I felt something twist in my chest. I didn't know what it was until that night I was driving home. Headlights cutting through the dark, and I realized I didn't want anyone else to take them. Not because I was afraid for them, but because they were already home with me. I pulled over right there on the side of the road, took out my phone, texted Renee 3 words. "I'm ready, all of them." No hesitation, no doubt. I was going to give them what no one else had. Not just a roof, not just food. Forever. Renee cried when I walked through the doors the next morning. She had the forms ready, already printed, already marked with sticky notes. "You're really taking all 5? She asked, like maybe I'd changed my mind overnight. I hadn't, not for a second. I signed every line. Mara, first, then Scout, then the other 3. Ash, River, and Luna, their names had come to me, like they were always meant to be. I knew who they were. I knew who I was now, too. The shelter gave me a crate, some food toys, even a starter bed. But when I loaded them into my truck, Mara in the passenger seat, the pups curled in a blanket-lined box behind us. It didn't feel like we were bringing home supplies. We were bringing home family. The house was quiet when we arrived. I had cleaned for days, cleared a space in the living room, laid down rugs, plugged in nightlights. But still, I wasn't sure how they'd react. Mara stepped in first, cautious. She sniffed every corner like she was memorizing the walls, checking for danger. The pups tumbled in behind her, tails already wagging. Scout walked straight to the center of the rug, laid down his red sock and curled around it, like this place had always been his. I sat on the floor and waited. Didn't move. Mara came to me, placed her head in my lap, and let out the deepest sigh I'd ever heard, a sound full of weight and release that night. The house wasn't quiet anymore. It was alive, tiny feet on hardwood, little whimpers, the sound of breathing peaceful, steady, full. I didn't fall asleep on the couch. I just stayed there, lights low. Scout tucked against my leg, Mara by the door, like she still needed to protect us. All but, I think deep down, she knew she didn't have to be the strong one anymore. We were strong together now. It's funny how fast the house can turn into a home. Within a week, the pups had found every hiding spot, every loose sock, every sunbeam on the floor. Luna would sneak under the bed and come out only when she heard her name. River liked to sleep in the laundry basket. Ash had a habit of dragging all the toys into one corner, like he was building a secret fort, and Scout never let go of that red sock. It followed him everywhere outside. Inside, even to the food bowl. It was torn and faded now, barely holding together. But it was his, a piece of the past he wasn't ready to let go of. Mara changed too. Her ribs disappeared. Her coat softened. She started to run, not just walk. Run full gallop across the backyard, like she'd remembered she was still young, still wild, still free. She'd nudge open the back door with her nose every morning and do a quick loop around the yard before circling back, rounding up the pups like a proud general. I watched it all with my coffee in hand, heart swelling bigger every day. But it was more than just watching. I started waking up earlier, going to bed later, my phone stayed in my pocket. More work didn't feel as heavy. The world felt lighter because every time I looked around, I didn't see a rescue. I saw purpose. They weren't just lucky to be found. I was lucky to have found them. Sometimes I'd sit on the porch at night, the same kind of porch where I first saw her, and Mara would sit beside me. No leash, no command, just calm, steady presence. I'd scratch behind her ears and whisper, "You saved me too." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her eyes told me she already knew it happened on a quiet Sunday morning. No big moment, no warning, just a knock at the door. It was Renee from the shelter. She held a clipboard, but her face looked worried. Behind her stood a man in a clean jacket, sunglasses on, arms crossed. He said he was from the city, said the abandoned house was scheduled for demolition. Weeks ago, said someone had filed a complaint that I removed animals from city property without permission. I felt the air leave my lungs. Renee stepped in fast. They're safe, they're adopted, they're healthy. But he kept going, words like procedure, documentation, unauthorized removal. I didn't hear all of it. My heart was beating too loud. Then he asked, "Do you have proof these animals were in distress?" I didn't answer. I didn't have photos. No video, just memory, just moments burned into my chest. Mara's stare, Scout's still body, the red sock on cracked wood. But then before I could speak, there was a sound, soft paws on the floor. Mara stepped forward, calm, confident behind her. All four pups, tails wagging, ears perked. Scout walked right up to the man, dragging the red sock like a flag behind him, and for a moment, just a moment, the man stopped talking. He looked down at the scar on Scout's leg, at the way Mara stood in front of them. All not barking, not afraid, just certain. Renee spoke again, quiet but firm. "They don't need paperwork. They're standing proof of survival." He didn't argue, just gave a tight nod and turned to leave. Renee stayed a moment longer, gave me a look. "I'll never forget you did more than save them," she said. "You gave them a story no one can take away that night." I sat on the floor, Scout curled beside me, his sock tucked under his chin, and I realized no matter what anyone says, no matter who knocks on our door, this is our home now, and nothing will ever change that sometimes the greatest rescues don't happen in a single moment. They happen over time, one quiet choice after another, one whisper of trust, one paw print on the porch. Mia didn't ask to be saved. She only asked not to be forgotten. In Scout, he never let go of that red sock, because sometimes even the smallest thing can carry the biggest piece of hope. I thought I was giving them a second chance, but the truth is they gave me mine. If this story touched your heart, please share it with others. Your action could save another dog, another life. Join our Brave Paws family. Together, we can change the world one paw at a time. Thanks for watching this story. For more stories, don't forget to like and subscribe.